Hey, lovely, welcome back to Fostering Kingdoms. I just want to share something caught my attention the other day, and it may feel a little bit uncomfortable to say out loud, so don't worry, I'm going to do that for us all. But feel free to join in the comment section, or if you are a part of our community over on fosteringkingdoms.com, feel free to open the conversation over there as well and talk about it. But when we look across the fostering system, the majority of carers are women. The majority of social workers are women. And yet, there is a lack of support between us all. There is a lack of encouragement, there is a lack of understanding, and ultimately, there is that lack of unity. And sometimes, if we're being really honest, it can feel like we are women working against women. Not always, and it's not always done intentionally, and it's not always done openly, but in small ways, this is truly felt in the tone, in the way that there's communication, or even the lack of communication. When there's assumptions, when there's lack of clarity, and even in the ways that we respond to one another. And I don't say this to criticize, I say it because I think this is something that we need to gently acknowledge. Because what would it look like if this was different? And I just want to open people's minds to having that difference. What would it look like if the fostering system, or even the whole social system, was a place where women, people can truly support one another, where mothers, carers, social workers were working together instead of questioning each other, where we actually backed one another, where instead of just assuming the worst about a person, we led with understanding and a bit more compassion, where instead of creating pressure for others, we actually created a safe space. And I say this because when women feel safe, we soften, we open up, we communicate, and we can actually collaborate and work together. And when that happens, everything shifts. And I don't just mean in the social dynamic, I mean children feel it, the home feels it, and conversations feel different. And I think sometimes we actually underestimate how much influence we carry as women. And even within the system, we still have that influence. Because fostering, it's relational. The role itself, it's emotional, it's layered, it requires trust. And trust isn't built through systems alone. Trust is truly built with how we treat one another. So I want this conversation to be really clear here. This isn't about blaming women as a whole. This isn't about blaming one group against another or a system against an individual, because every one of us in this space, we are carrying unseen pressures, and that has to be recognized. There's high caseloads, there's emotional weight, there's system demands, there's red tape that stop us from being able to actually do the things that we want, there's management, there's decisions that are just ultimately out of our control. And when people are put under pressure, they don't always show up as their best selves. And I'm sure you can relate to that yourself as well. But that doesn't mean that things can't begin to shift because there's pressure. When we understand that culture doesn't just change from the top, but the culture can change through conversations. It can change through the tone in which we choose to respond to one another. And it could just be simply like asking a question. So maybe instead of us asking ourselves, why is this always so hard to speak with that person, or to have a conversation with that person, or to just deal with that person? But maybe we should be asking ourselves, what would it look like if I began to be a part of the change? What would it look like if I chose to respond with calm instead of defensiveness? What if I chose to encourage instead of criticize? What if I chose to pause before assuming? What if I spoke with kindness even when things are really difficult? Because empowerment doesn't always look loud. Sometimes empowerment just looks like holding space, choosing grace, seeing the person not just for the role, but who they truly are. In Romans 12:10, it says, "Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves." Could you imagine if that was the culture? If that was how the social construct worked? There was no competition, no tension, no silent frustration, but true honor to one another, true support, true respect. And I know that we're not there yet. And the system, it does need a whole change, but I can't see that change happening anytime soon. And probably not in my lifetime. Maybe we might not ever get there. But I do truly believe this, that we don't need to change everyone at once, but we just need more women to choose to show up differently, to choose kindness in every situation. And it might look really small at first. It might just look like a different tone in an email, a softer response to a difficult conversation, or just choosing to understand instead of reacting to somebody. It could just be listening to a whole story without the need to tear someone down for their journey. These small shifts, they create different environments. And different environments long term, truly that is going to create better experiences for everybody involved. Everything that we do, children are at the core of that. But we can also make the change for carers, for birth families, and for social workers. And this is something that I care so deeply about within Fostering Kingdoms. It's not just supporting carers practically, but it's helping to create a culture that feels safer, that feels softer, and that feels stronger. A place where people in need can come and are held. A place not to face judgment, but instead creating a space where collaboration is at the core. And this is how we're going to build that lasting impact. Fostering was never meant to feel like we're working against one another. That doesn't solve anything, it just causes more frustration and tension. But fostering was meant to be something that we all carry together. And maybe that's where the change begins. Instead of waiting for the system around us to change, instead of waiting for the other side to be nicer to us, maybe instead we just pray for God to guide us, for us to be the example, for us to be the change. And I know sometimes that can feel like, Jess, I'm just a foster carer and you're putting a lot of pressure on me. But I want to share this with you. And I used to say this to all my young girls that I've cared for. And sometimes it's a reminder for myself too when I say it. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to do the hard work for you. And no one is going to get you the results that you want. You have to do that hard work for yourself. And I share this because it's not about being cruel, but it's about empowering them to stop waiting on others to do the things that they want to do, for them to create the life that they want. And if you're done with the way that things are going around you, and you're done with the way that conversations are going, you are allowed to stop the conversations and bring it back to unity. You are allowed to be the one who saves yourself in all of this. So yes, we're all going to have our own opinions over the system, but the system doesn't have to stop us from being human in it. We can still empower one another, encourage and support each other when women start working with women. So no, this isn't going to be easy, but just remembering that it takes a village to raise a child. So it's about time that we all start acting like a village and stop acting like we're in a war zone. Thank you for being a part of Fostering Kingdoms community. And I'd love to invite you today to be an active member simply by liking this video, subscribing to our podcast, or even sharing this episode with a fellow foster carer. The more that we can support one another, encourage one another, the more change that we truly have. If you're looking for more resources and support, you can find everything over at fosteringkingdoms.com. But if you're not ready to say goodbye yet, don't worry, we can hang out some more.